Hey everyone, Dave K here with Mike, and today we are going to reflect on our first day as residents and the changes that we've experienced since living in the area. Let's do it. Reflecting back on the changes since we first came out here, Mike, to the Central Florida area and how that experience has been. Looking back, thinking about our first day here, what does it remind you of? What do you remember most clearly?
I remember the distinct feeling of being in vacation mode and then just kind of transferring into a relaxed mode. And the change has been extremely, I would call it apparent and striking, especially to me, just because, I never really experienced Disney this way before, and it is really nice. I gotta tell you, I love it.
Yeah. And I think in coupled with that, right, not just the vacation mode, and that's a huge piece of it, but I think that was coupled with kind of like the stressors of trying to settle, right, and get things unpacked and figure out your schedule. And I think that's sort of added to that sort of intensity, if you will, where, it's become more norm. The more norm it's become, the easier it's been to settle into more of an everyday sort of lifestyle. Now, back then, you had an impression of how often you would come to the parks. Do you think that impression was somehow shifted, or this is just sort of felt natural? Where do you think that comes from?
This is kind of what felt natural to me. I originally thought it would be far more infrequent than what we're doing now. I've been to the parks basically every day since I've been here, and I wouldn't have had it any other way, and I absolutely love it. And I don't know, it's just what makes me the most happy. So for me, it makes perfect sense to do it this way, and I wouldn't change a thing.
Right. Yeah, and I remember that initial estimate was something like 3 to 4 days a week, and I guess you're not that far off with 7 days a week. It's close. Not more than 100 times, or 100% as much, 2 times as much.
Right.
Yeah. Now, we also talked about and we thought about the sort of shifting of feeling. And I want to also touch on sort of the vibe and the experience that you had in the past versus now when it comes to the different parks and when it comes to the water parks as well and the resorts and Disney Springs and sort of the vibe you had in those places before and the feeling and the vibe you get now.
That's a really good point, because in the past, going to the water parks or Disney Springs, you felt like you were missing out on something else. I could be in the parks, I could be at a resort, I could be somewhere else, and now I never get those feelings. I just go and I have fun, and that's a big change for me. I think that the water parks and Disney Springs are some of my favorites. And I absolutely love them. I want to go back again and again. To me, that's just kind of like the highlight, and it becomes bigger and bigger every time I go to them.
Right. Yeah, and I feel like in addition to that, right, it's previously the Disney Springs and the resorts and the water parks felt similar to Disney, where they were relaxing, but you only had so much time. And those have changed the most, in my opinion, where they've become that much more of the place to sort of kick back and relax and just sort of enjoy sort of the vibes and the experience. Now, going to the parks every day, do you find that your pace in the parks is similar to what it was before, and also to how it was when you first got here?
My pace has definitely decreased, but I'm still, even after, basically 2 months at this point, I still find myself moving quite quickly, especially, compared to when I think about, longer periods of time. But I'm slowing down, and it's getting, a slower and slower pace every single time, and I love it. And I'm seeing more details that I hadn't seen before. The other day, I just sat on a bench at Hollywood Studios and just looked around.
Yeah.
Just appreciated the billboards up in the sky, and those kind of moments to me are priceless.
Yeah.
Absolutely priceless. I love it.
And I kind of feel like it's still hard to believe, every day you drive in, and it's so separating from the everyday life. You're like, wait a second.
Yeah.
How long have I been out here?
Right.
I just got here, right?
Yeah.
For sure. Now, when we first got out here, it was pretty much the same feeling to the vacation, right? Because you kind of felt it was a vacation. So have you noticed, sort of as the weeks have passed, a slow change? Or was there a particular day or a couple days where you've had a big sort of change in feeling?
You know, I think it's just all about the amount of time. So it's been several weeks, months, you know, we're getting there. And I've had the opportunity to say, okay, you know, this is no longer a limited time. And I'm still semi on vacation. It's still vacation mode quite a bit. So it's taking me longer than I thought to shake vacation mode.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I like it a lot. I like that a lot. And a lot of people would call it like the honeymoon phase for
Right.
some. And I get that. I totally get that. But yeah, I really love it. And it's different, but to me, no less magical at all.
It's true. It's true. It has been. It's been such a shift because it did feel exactly like a vacation when we first got here. And it started to, again, feel slower paced and more real and more relaxing over time. Now, continuing to move forward in time, do you envision that there will be more of a progression of that feeling? Do you envision the days that you spend in parks or water parks or anything like that being any different? What are your thoughts on that?
I envision a progression, kind of a slower pace in the future as well. I don't know how much slower. I don't know how much slower I can go, but I know that there will be, you know, opportunities where I can just sit back, relax, and on a bench and relax and
Right.
enjoy.
Let's talk about the difference in the change in water park days versus regular park days. Do you envision that being the same or a little bit different?
Similar.
Okay. You think the number of days that you spend at a water park versus a regular park will be about the same or similar?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, about the same or similar.
What about the springs or the resorts?
About the same or similar, maybe even more resort time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds nice. Anything else that stands out to you that you really want to see and do now that you have the time here, whether it's at the park, something you haven't seen or haven't done, or off Disney property that you haven't seen or done?
Resort time, definitely want to do even more resort time. There are
Okay.
many resorts you and I have not been to yet. After being here for 2 months, still haven't been to them. It's just because there's so much to do. But there's always something new. There's always something new, always something happening, always something to look forward to.
That's very true. Very, very good point. So many resorts we still have yet to see. Now, today we are experiencing some new magic of the animal kingdom. And one of the reasons we're here is to be able to check out some of those annual pass holder perks. In the past, have you been able to get all those annual pass holder perks, and do you feel like that's an added advantage of being right around the corner?
It is. It definitely is. You know, it's nice because we get to experience all the specialty events. There are even more throughout the year that we haven't seen yet. But even something as, you know, standard as food and wine, you can go and experience more of the booths, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, that's definitely a perk, being able to spend more time at those festivals, which you might not normally see. And another one of those events that we're getting to check out a lot of that you may not normally get to see so much of is Mickey's Not So Scary, at least right now. Are there any other events in the future that you're really excited to spend more time at and be able to check out?
Not that I can think of, but there are like special Disney Parks blog events and, you know, new things happening, new parties, new festivals, updates to the parks, those kind of things.
Yeah. Another thing I'm really excited for is as the new rides that we heard about and as the new things that we heard about from D23 are coming to the park, it should be really, really cool to have the opportunity to check those out and be able to experience that as well. So I'm excited for that. Food and wine, you know, we're here in Food and Wine, and that's something we're getting to experience experience even more. In the past, have you had the opportunity to try all of the food, or what percentage of the food would you say you've had the opportunity to try in the past?
Not nearly all that I wanted.
Okay.
You know, I don't know about the percentage, but not nearly all that I wanted because there were such limited days.
Right. And how about now? How much of the food and wine do you think you're going to try?
I'm going to try it all now.
It does sound good. It does sound good. I've been loving the food and wine so far.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I haven't checked out any of the other festivals quite yet, but this is the one that I was the most excited for. And I feel like it's doing a pretty good job of living up to the hype so far, you know. There's so many more to see too, you know, depending upon all sorts of variables. The Flower and Garden, I remember being a fun one. And I'm wondering too, as we go into those festivals, and I guess we'll see this as we go along, but you may have insights on this as well. Is there more that you haven't had the chance to do at those other festivals, right? Food and Wine has a lot of food options, but is there a lot of stuff that you weren't able to do all in one trip at Flower and Garden or at those other festivals?
There definitely are a few things here and there. There are just kind of the details that I want to experience next time.
Yeah, that sounds nice. You know, being able to sort of sit back and look at those little things and take that time. I think that's been one of the biggest changes, you know, is that sort of vibe and that pace, and being able to sort of kick back and experience that slower pace and really enjoy the magic in a new way where you know, it doesn't feel like so much of a rush, and we can see those little details and really appreciate and experience all that there is to experience. You know, I definitely feel like that's added quite a bit. So experiencing our first pseudo hurricane here, we're starting to get some of that runoff, and it started raining sort of out of the blue extremely intensely here. You know, we've experienced out of the blue rain before, but this is extremely intense. You see people getting drenched. My camera here under the Animal Kingdom banner is still getting a little bit wet, so we'll see if I keep this position here, this angle. But again, just getting soaked out of the blue here, and this might last, I don't know, what, 10 minutes you think?
10, 20.
10, 20, we'll see.
Quick one.
Just like, what do you call it, a popcorn?
Popcorn storm.
Popcorn storm. So it's sort of the offshoot of Dorian.
I'm not sure if this is directly related. It could be. It's very possible, but I believe this is a popcorn storm.
Cool. But you've got the radar showing you the waves coming in of rain. So it's just a little sort of bit of rain, but it looks like more rain is coming our way sort of intensely. And we'll have to see how things play out. Again, it looks like it was downgraded to a tropical storm for us. There we go. Nice little animation there. Thank you. Awesome. So you can see the rain sort of moving down towards us. Was not really expecting it, but we kind of were. We thought it'd be later tonight, right? We thought the rain would show up. Ooh.
There's Dorian. That's Dorian off the coast.
There you go. We thought the rain would show up later tonight, but it's coming here out of the blue here.
And I think you're right. This looks like it is pieces of Dorian. I think David was absolutely right. It's definitely some arms, some wide arms of Dorian. Yep.
And it's like tiny pieces of it.
Very small, but it is definitely related.
You could only imagine if we were in the middle of that. Would not be super pleasant. But it looks like maybe it's clearing up here. Maybe we'll get the chance to run somewhere else. But it seems like it might be a stop and go kind of day here. So we'll have to see what the hurricane brings us. Yeah, we'll see. And Mike has done it again. He works Mike's magic. We waited out the storm for about 10 minutes, that popcorn storm at Animal Kingdom under the little hut there, and walked back, actually took the tram back to the car. Took a while for that tram, and still we managed to avoid any more incoming rain. Now the seats were somewhat wet when we got back on the tram, for sure.
Oh yeah.
But we did manage to avoid more rain, more storm coming through. Now even more storm looks like it'll be headed our way later today, later tonight. So we'll see how that goes. You know, you never know if that's going to come through or what that's going to look like, but it definitely looks like it's going to be a little bit worse tonight. Now, to give you more background on the hurricane here, initially we heard about the hurricane, thought it would be coming probably today, Monday, and it got pushed back over time. You know, the storm sort of got pushed back, Tuesday, Wednesday maybe being the peak of it, and then eventually it just became sort of a tropical storm for us where it's sort of staying along the coastline. So it might be staying along the coastline, moving up the east coast, so we won't be getting much more than a tropical storm here. But initially looked like it was going to be coming straight for us. There were several different paths it could have taken, and it sort of curved off as hurricanes do away from us. So we lucked out on this one, but we're still sort of seeing some of the rain, some of those sorts of things that you can expect of the hurricane. We'll have to figure out how we're going to dodge the rain here, and I imagine we won't lose power. So it's really just a question of, you know, how often will we be going out? How much are we going to stay indoors? You know, will this impact any of our plans to go to the parks or anything like that? So it's definitely something to consider and to keep in mind. Mike, what are your thoughts overall on the hurricane?
Sounds about right. You know, ready for them just in case, and we are ready just in case, but it looks like it's veering off, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, and it's a nice light one to start off with. You know, in your experience of hurricanes out here and really being amongst them, not just visiting them, but really living in them, I think it's a nice sort of easy way to start off with that hurricane experience. So we'll see how it goes, and yeah, just, you know, see what happens and try to keep away from it. You know, try to continue to work that magic to avoid getting soaked. Let's talk a little bit about hurricane preparation and how you feel you can be fully prepared for a hurricane and have everything you need for a hurricane. For me, what comes to mind is stay indoors. So you want to make sure you have enough water, you want to make sure you have enough food. Gasoline is important, but chances are you probably won't use your car too much during the hurricane, I would imagine. But it does get expensive right before the hurricane, so that's definitely something you want to stock up on. Besides that, I can't think of too many items. You know, you maybe want to block up your doors, make sure you don't have any openings into your house in case you're on a lower level or in case you have holes in your ceiling. Again, just to sort of avoid some of that rain, some of that wind. But that covers some of the highlights for me. Mike, what comes to mind for you in terms of hurricane preparation?
Well, charging up power banks for your electronics. A lot of people rely on those nowadays. Even when the hurricane goes through, you probably won't have any reception. Having power for them can be critical. Making sure that you're all charged up and everything else that you need is charged up. Having medicines and other things that you may need, you know, longer term, thinking about that. Gasoline, I want to touch back on that. Just in case there is a late evacuation, having a full tank of gas, I think, is very important. You may not be thinking of going anywhere, but let's say you need to. Also, you may want to have cash on hand, just in case. Like, let's say a store runs out of power for their electronics, but they still have canned food, and they can't pay with card, but they can pay with cash. Maybe a little bit of extra cash on hand never hurts.
Those are all very, very good points, and things I hadn't considered. I have been charging up my gear for the past couple of days, but you're right, it's not something that necessarily comes to mind. So make sure not only have you charged your phone, your electronics, but you even charge the chargers so you can keep longer power in those electronics and those sorts of things. I also touched on food, and I want to touch back on that. It's important to consider food that does not need refrigeration or to be frozen, because if your fridge or your freezer goes out and you have no power, you need to be able to eat something that is dry and can be safely consumed dry. So that's something to consider as well, looking at whether it's chips or I'm not really sure what else would qualify here for us. Your thoughts?
Pre-cooked food that just needs to be reheated, and
right.
Technically if it thaws out, it's still good to eat. There are certain things like that you can get,
chicken nuggets.
Chicken nuggets, so those are pre-cooked, things like that, yeah.
Right.
Pre-cooked items.
Yeah. And if you can stock your pantry with some stuff that you can eat normally, let's call it nuts or something along those lines. Like if you have certain nuts that you like, make sure you get enough of those. Again, just to sort of have food that can go for a while without refrigeration. Definitely some good things to keep in mind. And now the rain has come back for us. Again, it seems to come out of nowhere in this area. Now, it seems more common here that it just kind of hits you from going from completely silent in the rain to intense rain here than in other places. But that is a sure sign of a hurricane as well. And I think the ramp in intensity is even more significant during the hurricane, during that time. So that's something to keep in mind as well, is when you start to see those intense rains, make sure you look at that radar, right? Make sure you look at the map and try to figure out how intense that rain is going to be and plan your day around it so that you can stay dry, or you can bring rain gear depending upon sort of your situation and how bad the rain will be. Make sure you plan accordingly. And we just finished up at Gasparilla Grill, was it? Mm-hmm. Good burger, but not #1. I'd put it at a tier 2 burger, maybe 4th or 5th place so far.
Fully agree.
Now back to our discussion about the hurricanes and moving down to this area. I remember initially in moving down, you were a little bit worried about losing the magic and that sort of thing. How have you felt since?
I felt fantastic since. I couldn't be happier with this move. Best thing I've ever done. I stand behind that. I can't see myself living anywhere else, honestly.
Yeah, and we talked about that concern initially, and I'm glad we were able to sort of make that plan and discuss how I was sure you were going to be super comfortable with it.
Okay, you were.
But to fully embrace and be able to experience it, I think it's really, really added, and it's clearly you've been enjoying it.
I love it.
Glad we can share it with you. Thanks so much for being a part of the fun with us. We appreciate you being a part of the journey. What would you like to hear more about? What do you think of the moving adventure? Are you considering a moving adventure yourself? Let us know in the comments below. If you have not already, for more fun, family-friendly adventures, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to stay informed. Until next time,
have a magical day.
And play on. We'll see you soon.